our stomachs out. And she ran around saying, "Quando cosa brutta, brutta." So now tell us about it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, she obviously knew. The problem with singing, teaching singing, is that you have to put in words things that one cannot touch and feel. And you've got to communicate to a student how to access. Now, for example, I'll tell you, when I say the support muscles, I'll say to my student, lift your bottom off the seat 2 inches and down again, and up and down. And then when you relax, you feel the muscles that you've been engaging. It's the lower abdominal muscles, it's the pelvic floor muscles, it's all those muscles. They take all the strain when you sing high and loud. You've got to send the energy down there. Now the breathing is, I work with expanding the lungs sideways. The diaphragm, I wouldn't talk about the diaphragm, except when you have to sing a long phrase. Because the diaphragm, when you breathe in, the diaphragm actually goes down to allow the lungs to expand. And you have to make singers aware of breathing into the lungs at the back as well. We often just do, often singers will breathe like this, lifting their chest, and that's very bad because it's shallow breathing and you don't feel very much and you can't last a phrase. So I have to make sure they don't do that. And then it's just a simple idea of breathing out, breathing in, but stretching sideways. This will expand. It's like having a tire, you know, an inflatable tire around the middle of your body, and it expands. The important thing about breathing is, and I do this exercise with my students, I make them breathe in to the count of 4, hold without tension for 4, and then breathe out. Then we go to 5, 6, 7, and 8. And once you've done that, you feel all the expansion in the body. And that's something you have to do a lot, a lot, a lot. And that's what helps you to improve your breath control.
Now, we would invite some questions from the audience.
You're talking about breathing. Have you ever tried pranayam in yoga teaching?
That's the yogic breathing.
Yeah.
I haven't myself, no.
You should try it and see if it works.
Is that the sort of rotational breathing?
It's normal breathing, but it's done in a yogic way.
Yeah. I think yoga is very good. In fact, in a lot of the schools of music in Europe, especially in England and London, they do yoga. The students do yoga to strengthen the core muscles, because that's what you need to use. You rely on the core muscles to sustain, to take all, see, I'll tell you something, pop singers, they sing from the throat, so the pressure is all on the vocal cords and the muscles, and quite often they're pushing their voice box up to get a high note. They think we naturally would reach upwards for a high note, but actually the systematic singing, the bel canto style of singing, and Pavarotti used to say this, that the vocal box needs to be in its rest position, no matter what you're singing. And I understand exactly what he means, that the vocal box has to be at its lowest point. And then you work to get the muscles around the larynx to anchor it. And that's when you sing at your best. If you start to push the larynx high, you lose the placing and you lose the connection with the body. And basically, it's strengthening the muscles in the neck, in the body. Even the rib cage needs to get stronger to be able to stay extended while singing a long phrase. Where the temptation is to collapse the lungs after a while. But it's a question of resisting so that the air flows out more slowly and you can spin the sound and you can sing longer phrases, and then you're in control.
Yet there were times today when you were asking the singer to push the breath.
No, that's a very different.
Sustain the tone.
No, see, there's 2 things. You have to allow the air to flow naturally, and what we do sometimes when we're preoccupied with a difficult phrase, we actually hold our breath and we starve the sound of air. So to allow, it's when there's a natural flow, you have to remind the singer on a sustained phrase or a difficult phrase, let the air flow. So you have to allow the air to flow naturally.
More control of the body.
Otherwise the voice gets thinner because there's not enough air feeding it. And I must tell you, because you play the violin, do you?
I used to.
I often
You
use
want to
the...
play now?
No. With my students, I have two images which you like. One is very Indian. I always think of India when I think of the bow and arrow. But the image of a bow, to create the hard palate is where you impact to get the resonance working in the head. And I think of the hard palate as a bow, and you never lose connection with the bow. But you have to draw the bow to get a good sound, because then you create the space behind the hard palate and in the pharynx, which allows the voice to gather resonance and color and richness. And the other image I use with my singers when I want them to sing really legato, I say, think of a violinist, you know. If you observe the bow hand, the bow has a certain pressure on the strings, but it's got to be very carefully maintained as it moves along. And that's what your legato should be like. You can't grip, you can't bump, you can't do anything that will affect that even flow of sound. And a lot of people like that image, you know, because the singer feels, it gives you there's a certain pressure in the singing process, but it's not too much, and that balance and continuous flow is very important.
Yes, Jason. Thank you. Two questions. One of my consistent obsessions is the lack of system, and I think you already referred to it in terms of how Indians have forgotten, they're not as in your since you are kind of returned to India in your association, what do you see in terms of the lack of system and how it could be the creation of a system could be facilitated? That's the first question. And the second is what plans for Goa or with Goa?
Okay, good question actually. I agree with you that there is no system, but I feel that there are places around the country that are doing Western music and starting to do it more and more. My sadness is that often these organizers would rather bring fully fledged artists from abroad to come and perform, and they're not yet prepared to take a risk. When I say to them, you know, I've got young singers, let's choose a program that suits the young singers, let them work with the orchestra. But it seems like, you know, the orchestra isn't, the SOI, which I don't consider to be an Indian orchestra because it's full of Kazakhstanis, is at too high a level for these young singers. But I think we have to be patient. And I've already started connecting with festivals around the country now. The Malt Festival, I sang there this year myself, and next year, two of my students and a little boy. So we have Rahul Jr. and Rahul Sr. singing with Faye Montero. They'll be doing a program. And I'm really happy that the Malt have allowed me. I said to them, give me a slot. I would like my singers to take part in your festival. They will get paid. And I think that's my aim, to find festivals around. Now, also I'm here at this festival, which I'm very happy to be at. It connects me with artists around India, and my plan is to connect with festivals around India and see if they will allow a good standard of performing. That's why my one aim is that I want the students to reach the highest level possible, and I want people like Joanne